Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, this is JD Davis with the Iowa Association of Business and Industry, and thank you for being with us this afternoon for the Northeast Iowa Regional Meeting. Appreciate your attendance, and we're going to go ahead and get started now. So thank you. As we do get started, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors for our regional meetings. They underwrite this event, so thank you to Alliant Energy, to Arconic, Sipco, Cox Communications, Hormel Foods, and Tyson Foods. Thank you to them for supporting us in this. Today, you're going to hear from the ABI team of the public policy folks, myself, JD Davis, and Brad Hartkoff, our Senior Director of Public Policy, as well as a special guest. Just for those that are not ABI members, we always like to let you know exactly who we are. We've invited not only ABI members from Northeast Iowa, but also other folks in the communities. And ABI is the oldest and largest business organization in the state of Iowa. We got started in 1903. We have 330,000 employees across the state of Iowa of our member companies. We are in all 99 counties and just about every legislative district. Our start in 1903 was because a few manufacturers in Iowa banded together to get the word out that Iowa was open for business and manufacturing. And we actually entered an exhibit in the World's Fair in St. Louis. Shortly after that, more pressing business issues came before manufacturers when the federal government rightly determined that employers should be responsible for injuries to employees in the workplace. The reaction of ABI's manufacturers was to form employers' mutual insurance so that they could manage the risk of workers' compensation cases. And from there, they stayed together, representing manufacturers until the 1980s, when it was determined coming out of the farm crisis and other events that we needed to have a more diversified economy. And ABI, then the Manufacturers Association, stepped in and started accepting other members, focusing first on the financial industry and then broadening beyond that. Now we still have more than half our members are in manufacturing and financial services. But we also have other members involved in energy and architectural and construction. And interestingly, other associations join ABI because we do a lot of the business style work at the Capitol on workers' compensation, on unemployment insurance, and other issues that are of broad appeal to those members of other associations. When we're at the Capitol, we like to talk about ABI. There's kind of a misconception that we're the representatives of big business when we're at the Capitol. But you look at the membership of ABI, and those two largest slices of the pie make up almost 2/3 of our membership. And it indicates that we have a great majority of our members have fewer than 100 employees. And they also happen to be located in suburban and exurban Iowa. We're not necessarily a metro association.
Thank you very much, JD. And now we have the rest of today's discussion before us. And folks are going to hear from State Senator Scott Webster, who is the chair of the Local Government Committee in the Senate. He's a small business owner and a great partner and ally of ABI. So we're looking forward to hearing his perspective on the 2025 legislative session, things that he worked on in particular, things that he would like to have seen get done or got done, and then kind of what's coming down the pipeline for next year. And so that will kind of start the program. And then JD and I are going to cover the four biggest public policy issues from the 2025 legislative session, the status of where things are right now and how those are impacting companies as we speak. And then finally, we're going to seek your feedback on what we should be focused on at the Capitol in 2026. We want to know what's on your mind and how we can make the business climate better. So we're going to be engaging our public policy process near the end of the program. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce Senator Scott Webster. He represents District 47, which is in eastern Iowa. That is located in Scott County and includes Bettendorf, Eldridge, and LeClaire. He's a first-term state senator, and he currently chairs the local government committee and is also the vice chair of the transportation committee. He has floor managed multiple pieces of regulatory reform legislation that seek to make housing more affordable, which we appreciate. That's something that we're always focused on at ABI. He's a business owner, he gets it, and just a great overall friend of the association. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Senator Webster, for your comments. Do we have you there, Senator?
I know that everybody's busy. Um, so hopefully my internet, even though it says it's unstable, works out well here. Um, Glad to be here. Brad, you want me to start with last year, or what do you want me to start with?
That's perfect.
I think last year was, it was filled full of ups and downs as there was probably days Brad was pulling his hair out on a few different issues. JD definitely was not, but was. I think we had some good issues go through. We had, the unemployment insurance bill made it through, which was one of the largest, in my opinion, one of the largest tax decreases on business that we've seen in a long time in order to help out with that unemployment rate with all the money that we had in there extra. That was a really good thing that we did. I think we didn't progress far enough on um, property taxes, but I think it's a method that it's good that we didn't go too quick, probably, because I think it really needs to get worked out and worked through in order to figure out the right way to do it to start lowering property taxes. I think we did quite a few different things through the local government committee to let local governments know that um, we're there, we're paying attention. We ran a lot of preemption bills in order to try to take away some of the regulatory environment that businesses have to deal with every day. I think most of your costs you'll find with how long we've been up in Des Moines as Republicans running it up there a lot. We've cut a lot of regulation. Governor Reynolds did a lot of red tape stuff. She just put out a Facebook post today about how much red tape she's cut um, through the regulatory side. And I think we need to look at the local government side and make sure that they're not over regulating our businesses and frankly our citizens to make sure that it's less expensive to live in Iowa, easier to grow a business in Iowa, and less costly so that we have government where government's needed, but not necessarily government all over. I come from local government, so I understand that they go to meetings every 2 weeks where we go to the Capitol for 3 or 4 months out of the year. So every 2 weeks, they think a lot of times they think they got to do something in order to justify them being council people, and then they create more ordinances and things that make it harder. So I think we're there in Des Moines to try to help that and make them realize that they need to spend their attention to, public safety, public works, and some amenities for people to live in areas, but not go over the top and raising property tax dollars and making it more expensive for people in higher regulatory areas. So that's what I think we looked at this year. We had, like I said, me personally had some ups and downs. I was an advocate for the casino moratorium that we didn't get through. As JT and Brad know, I was pulling my hair out as hard as I could to try to get that done for my local area. And we had the PBM reform bill that I wasn't a real big fan of, and I thought we needed a little bit more work on. But those things happen. You can't win all of your battles up there all the time. So you pick and choose where you win and lose. But hopefully, maybe we swing back to the PBM at some point in time and see if we can get something that fits business and fits all the rural pharmacies that are out there. So that's my recap for last year.
What about coming up in 2026? What do you have your eye on in particular? Anything that really stands out that you'd like to see addressed?
I mean, I would think that I think our number one goal, and I would guess most of our caucus is going to be number one goal is going to be hitting the property tax area and figuring out how to get this 10,000 pound gorilla under control, where we have increasing property taxes on everybody year after at rates well above inflation, very expensive changes where you knock on doors and you got senior citizens saying, "I don't know that I can afford to live here because of the taxes anymore," is a problem. So I would look at that. I would say the local government's going to look back and we're going to look at you know going over the top of some of the regulation going on inside of cities and saying, you guys got to slow this down. And talking to different companies that were building buildings inside these cities, they're coming up with landscaping plans that these cities are making of, $250,000, $500,000 in landscaping plans. Makes it really hard to start a business when you start out, $250,000 or $500,000 in the negative just to put trees in and do what they want on the landscaping side. So I think we're going to continue to look at preemption over them on a lot of different areas in local government and trying to lower those fees, and making it easier to develop in those cities and towns. So that's where I think local government will probably go. Um, where we go on everything else, I think the main big thing that's going to happen next year is property tax. I think we're going to have to get some resolution on that. So I think that will be the big focus. It's a shorter session, so things go a lot quicker. I'm more used to it now. The last short session I had, it was, first funnel feels like it's 2 weeks after you get there. So it's fast. So working on some of the bills from last year, trying to lower fees, lower regulation, get property tax under control, I think will be the big things.
No, that's great. Given your vice chair of transportation, do you see anything in the transportation space that needs to be looked at?
I don't know that we have a lot up there. I mean, there's a lot of little kind of piddly things that are big to some people, but transportation, you got the window tint bill that's been hanging out there forever. It feels like we should just do something about it and get it over with. You got people talk about front license plates, stuff like that. That's big things. I think for the most part, transportation, it ends up being a lot of small policy bills back and forth. We did the hands-free last year, so I think the major lift in that is gone. But it's also one of those areas where um, I concentrate and focus on a lot of local government stuff. But come October or November, you get a lot of people coming in saying, "Hey, we need this little fix here, this little fix there." So there could be some things in transportation that go this year, but for the most part, I would say the window tint is the one that we're going to get the most emails on getting something done on it. Front license plates might be number two. But there wasn't a lot of heavy lifting in that last year. So I don't expect a lot this year either.
Sure. We'll go ahead and open it up to anybody who's on the call. If you have a question for Senator Webster, feel free to unmute yourself, and go ahead and ask it.
Well, Senator, while we're waiting for folks, this is JD. I just wanted to circle back and give a thank you to you on all the work you're doing at local government, specifically on development costs. Because one of the priorities of ABI is workforce housing tax credits, and frankly, with some of the ordinances that local governments pass, they can eat up the value of that even before you have it factored into your projects. So your eagle eye on what's going on there, we sure appreciate that, and the actions that you have taken that we've gotten through. So I really do appreciate your role that you're
Yep.
playing there, so that we can work on some of these priorities that ABI has in housing side.
And that's one of the things we got to figure out a good way of doing.
Scott, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Now we can. Yeah, you're back.
Yep.
There we go.
Didn't hear
Uh,
anything of your response to me.
well, the big thing we need to look at, and I've always said this, is if the state's just giving tax credits away to pay for the regulation at the local city, we got to look at it in a different method, because all we're doing is paying for the overregulation inside of the city. So we got to figure out a way to incentivize cities to have less regulation rather than just use the tax credits to pay for all the regulation. And I think we got to probably do that in a scoring system. And that gets difficult because some towns and cities will get left out, but it'll be by their own doing. So that's why when I talk to a lot of people on development and stuff like that, those local elections matter so much, to go in and tell people and say, listen, this is, you need to be cognizant of your regulation is costing us a bunch of money. So we got to figure out a way to change the scoring system on those workforce housing tax credits. And frankly, on any tax credits that we give out for economic development, we need to make sure that cities are prioritized those that have less regulation. And I'm not saying get rid of the safety side of things and make things unsafe, but there's a fine line in between, just claiming on everything. If we want safety on everything, new houses and everything would all be built with bubble wrap and nobody'd ever get hurt. You got to have a real fine line in what you do and have a real thought in it. And I've been to the code meetings where they insert this stuff into the code to make it have to go. And most of those code meetings are, people trying to get their product into the building code.
That's good
It looks
feedback.
like we got no raised hands.
Yeah, any questions? Please feel free to unmute. Not, Senator, do you have any closing comments for us before we move on to the next part of the program? Oh, we lose them again.
Yeah.
Technology is fun.
Yeah, looks like we've lost or frozen Webster.
Well, if he does come back, we will let him close with some comments. So apologize for the technical difficulties there, but we'll go back to our program. Appreciate the senator taking time to speak with us today, and I'll turn it back over to JD.
All right, Brad, thank you. This set of regional meetings that we've been conducting across Iowa is kind of the moment where we take our last look back at what we did in 2025 and begin really laying the groundwork and collecting your input on what we need to be leaning into for 2026. So as part of that readout, Brad and I are going to go through 4 key issues that we worked on during this past session. And the first one, Senator Webster alluded to, Pharmacy Benefit Manager Bill, or the Pharmacy Price Control Bill, as we like to call it, did pass both chambers and was signed by the governor. And ABI at every turn, at every subcommittee that was held, testified in support of helping small rural independent pharmacies, but highlighted the problems with the bills that were just huge cost centers for and created the most expensive healthcare mandate that Iowa has considered. So we pushed back in that manner. The bill was signed, and ABI is leading a set of folks that have taken this legislation to the U.S. District Court. And we have prevailed at this point in getting a temporary restraining order and now a temporary injunction against the bill going into effect for ABI members and the other named litigants in the lawsuit. That now has been appealed to the U.S. Appeals Court, and the work will continue there. But just know that of the major price centers that were in that bill, they will not be in effect for ABI members. So we're pleased where we are right now on shaping public policy. Most of the legislation, the parts that did not survive the review for the injunction, state of Iowa, is because there is federal legislation that fills this space and reserves the right to regulate healthcare plans across state lines, and so much of the bill fell away because of that. The bill also prevented employer sponsors of health plans from telling their employees where they could go for the least expensive pharmacy services. So that was a violation, according to the court, the suppression of commercial speech, and that is now no longer regulated by the law. So many parts of the law have been set aside, and if you're an ABI member, you will not feel the costs of this healthcare mandate. The second thing that we will highlight, we worked on quite a bit. Senator Webster mentioned it too, was a property tax reform effort. Here we've listed Senate File 651. That was the last of 3 bills that were introduced this year. They were all common in their theme and how they wanted to go about dealing with property taxes. ABI met with prior to last session with the chairs of the Ways and Means Committee, and the direction that Brad and I were given from our board that we relayed to those chairs was that ABI wanted to see the legislature be bold in what they were taking on, that that this current system was Band-Aids on Band-Aids of trying to figure out how to make property taxes work, and that we thought that it was time for bold action. That's what we got. We had a total reset of the way that people are proposing to do property taxes. And all three of these bills that were introduced kind of followed the same themes. The first thing was that they would put a spending limitation on local governments so that the growth of their expenditures were capped in some manner, while still allowing an understanding that the effects of inflation need to be factored in. They also made sure that a feature that has caused quite a bit of uncertainty for local governments, the idea of a rollback where there was a calculation annually about the distribution of the tax load for local governments between the different classes of property were rejiggered every year, which made it nearly impossible to forecast how you were going to spend and how you're going to receive dollars. There was a elimination over time of that rollback system. And then the thing that ABI was very insistent on was that as we're looking at relief amongst the different classes of property, that we did not simply provide a lowering of property tax responsibility by pushing that off onto a different class of property. So that was a feature of all three of the pieces of legislation that treated all the classes the same. We were happy to see that. We'll be advocating for that going forward. And finally, some relief was given in these property tax bills to taxpayers by taking over with state dollars some of the education spending that had been the responsibility of property taxes. So that's where we expect the legislature to start again. The difference this coming year is that we'll have the report of the governor's DOGE committee that's looking for efficiencies in local government. And we are certain that if there are any things that can be monetized immediately as far as savings for local governments, that they will get built into the way that relief is delivered. So we will be involved before the session and during session and how that takes shape. So Brad, next to you.
Thank you, JD. That third bullet relates to Senate File 607, which is unemployment insurance premium or tax reform. Governor Reynolds brought forward this very significant piece of legislation that really overhauled the taxes that employers are going to pay each year for unemployment insurance. But before I get into the details of what the bill does, I just want to provide a little bit of background and history about unemployment and our trust fund here in Iowa since COVID first hit. I think it can be argued very validly that Iowa has handled this topic extremely well compared to many of our states across the country. Iowa might be the best state that's handled this topic since COVID, and I'm going to tell you why. In March of 2020, COVID strikes Iowa, the U.S., and the rest of the world, and we shut down for a few months. Governor Reynolds reopens our state relatively soon during that summer. But during the initial part of COVID, the unemployment rate hits 10% in Iowa. Hundreds of millions of dollars are flowing out of the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund to those who are unemployed through no fault of their own because we have the massive business closings. And it's all but certain that we're going to see massive business tax hikes going into next year for unemployment insurance because the fund is being drained. Congress passes the CARES Act in 2020, and then they passed the American Rescue Plan Act in 2021 that provides several hundreds of millions of dollars for each state to divvy up accordingly to how they want to use them to sustain local governments, businesses, employees, other purposes. One of those other purposes was being able to take money from the feds and put that into the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund, which Governor Reynolds led on. She took $727 million in a combined package and put that into the trust fund, which stabilized it as all this money was going out so that businesses did not see significant tax hikes in 2021. She was one of the leading governors in this regard. In 2021, I believe it was June, she ended the federal bonus pandemic unemployment benefits. ABI was very supportive of this move because at that time, Iowa had essentially fully reopened and there were plenty of jobs available. So that move was encouraged for people to return to the workforce where they can make more money in the first place. Then in early 2022, Governor Reynolds and Iowa Workforce Development announced the Reemployment Case Management Program, which connects a claimant in their first week of unemployment with a career counselor to try to help them get back into the workforce as quickly as possible. And because of that work, the average claimant is now on unemployment in Iowa 9.5 weeks, and then they return to work, which is pretty phenomenal. And I think that's the lowest mark we've seen since IWD's been keeping statistics since the 60s. And so that's something to be very proud of. Also in 2022, Governor Reynolds spearheaded the most significant reform to the unemployment insurance statute since it was first founded in the 1930s. She proposed a bill that ultimately became law that lowered the maximum number of weeks that somebody could be on unemployment from 6 months, which is 26 weeks, down to 4 months, which is 16 weeks. We were very supportive of that piece. There's also a provision in there that enhances suitable work requirements to encourage people to take work faster as it's offered to them. It also lowered the number of business closing weeks that somebody could take advantage of from 39 to 26. And then finally, it reimagined some of the code language regarding how the law is supposed to be interpreted, which makes a significant difference when a judge is considering the claim that's before them. And so having those reforms has put Iowa at the front of the line as far as unemployment insurance and our trust fund is handled. And because of that, we have $2 billion in our trust fund right now, which is far and away enough money to take care of any claims that come forward. And so what the governor did this year was propose to cut those tax rates, cut the taxable wage base in half, which provides $1.2 billion in relief over 5 years, all while maintaining the sustainability of the trust fund. And so tax rates are going to go down. The highest tax rate right now in each table is 7%. That's going to go down to 5.4%, which is the lowest you can go under federal law for a maximum tax rate. The ranks and the tables are going to collapse, which simplifies the process for employers and claimants. And so, all in all, this is a very significant bill that's going to provide relief to businesses who pay those taxes. Iowa Workforce Development estimates that a business will see between 40 to 60% reduction in their UI taxes beginning next calendar year. So we were very excited that this got done, and it kind of right sizes the amount of money that's within the trust fund as well. The fourth bullet relates to drug and alcohol testing reform. This is House File 767. This bill is a fine example of ABI's public policy process coming together and working and then bearing fruit at the end of the day. A few years ago, our Workplace and Product Safety Committee had highlighted some of the issues with the statute, some of the troublesome areas for employers, areas where they were getting caught up in litigation. And so they came up with some recommendations for JD and I to work on during the next few legislative sessions. And after educating policymakers for a couple of years, we were able to get this bill through the process and signed by the governor this year. The biggest piece of this legislation deals with the burden of proof. So prior to this bill becoming law on July 1st, an employer was considered guilty until proven innocent if a claim was brought against them. This shifts the burden of proof over to the plaintiff to prove their case against the employer. So if an employee wants to sue, you're still welcome to do that, but they have to prove their case by a preponderance of the evidence, which is an important evidentiary standard that's common for civil cases of this type. Before this, there were technical violations that were being made by employers that were causing them to settle for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars based upon the feedback we were getting from our members. And so we think this is a really good step forward. One other component of this bill relates to communication methods regarding the exchange of drug and alcohol testing results. Prior to this law taking effect, employers had to utilize certified mail return receipt requested. Now they can utilize that same method, but they can also offer the in-person exchange or electronic exchange of testing results to the employee. The employee still gets to decide the method, so the ball is in their court, but it does provide flexibility to both parties to speed up the process if that's what's done. We feel like these are the most significant reforms to the statute since it was first established in the 1990s, and it should make a big difference when it comes to minimizing the litigation risk that employers face who have drug and alcohol testing programs. And so I think we'll pause right here and take any questions on the four policy issues we covered if anybody has any questions. Okay, we will move on to the next part.
All right, very good. A little bit earlier, I mentioned that today with the regional meetings was kind of the moment where we did our look back on 25 and started shifting gears towards looking at 2026. And that's truly where we are now. And so a little bit about our public policy process as we get ginned up for the next session and the next year. we try to make sure at ABI that we are working off of feedback from our members. So we try to set up a real grassroots way of collecting information from members, starting with these meetings, but then also leading into some more structured committee meetings that we have around issue areas. So our 5 public policy committee meetings will be meeting in August. We'll go over those here in just a little bit. But once they've produced their output of what the policies of ABI should be going forward, those are all sent up to a legislative committee, and that legislative committee kind of works as a clearinghouse. So they will kind of make sure that there is harmony between the different policy committees. They'll take all that, and then they will actually serve up to our board of directors a set of 3 or 4 major policy goals for the year, as well as all of the attendant policy that we keep from year to year. And then our board of directors will act on that, and they can accept what has been put in front of them, or they can send issues back down to the policy committees for further work. And once that is all put together, those are the marching orders that Brad and I have to take to policymakers, legislature, and the executive branch to execute on the priorities of ABI. We've talked about our committees that we have upcoming. Let's use these now as kind of an opportunity to review what their workload is, and then see if that generates any questions or comments from folks today. The first one that we will convene will be next week. It'll be August 5th, and that's our Workplace and Product Safety Committee. That's where we've done a lot of work on the reform of the Workers' Compensation Code. We always address tort reform in that committee, and it's where, as Brad just highlighted, the drug and alcohol testing bill came from. So if you have experts within your organization in this area or any of the others that we're going to be talking about, it's really recommended that you have them detailed to get to these meetings, not only just so you can know what is going on at ABI, but these are the people that we rely upon as experts to guide us in how we understand issues and how we can put them in front of the policymakers. Our second meeting is the Employment and Workforce Committee, and this committee works a lot on the barriers to employment. One of the things we learned coming out of COVID is that we had a lot of people sidelined because of things that had not traditionally been what we would consider business issues, like childcare, like caring about available housing, like healthcare issues. So if you have people in your organization, or if you have thoughts today, we'll hear those from you. The Environment Committee is probably our busiest committee throughout the year. It's the members that have interest in the Environment Committee typically are heavily regulated industries. And so we are communicating quite a bit of the time with them, both in and outside of session. We know that we're going to be hearing a story at this committee meeting about the fact that the federal government and the federal dollars that have used to flow down to the states for the administration of their regulatory functions in the environment may not be as robust as it has been in past years. So if you are a regulated industry, we think you should get somebody to that meeting, particularly because we're going to be talking about how we manage our regulatory scheme if the dollars aren't there. So it's important to get some expertise in that area from your business if you have it. Our Economic Growth Committee probably has the broadest portfolio of any of our committees, all the way from K-12 education, the tax credits that Senator Webster mentioned that go to housing, that go to research and development. Those types of business incentives are considered there. We are in the middle of working on seeing if we need to refresh our energy policy going forward. There's been legislation in the past year. We're expecting more in the coming year on that issue. We really think, if we have interest there, especially in the manufacturing side or in the energy production side, those folks need to be attendant. And the tax committee, really going to be two main focuses this year that we think we're going to be hearing about in that committee. If you have tax professionals, send them, please. But we're going to hear a lot, of course, about property taxes and how we approach redoing the property tax system. We're hearing about any of the efficiencies that are being discovered by the DOGE task force. And then, very interestingly, we're going to have a presenter there that's going to be talking about all of the federal tax changes that have occurred and how that really interests Iowa. Iowa is one of those states that conforms with any change in the federal tax code automatically. And so this will have good news for business interests that are doing well under the federal schemes, but it's also going to have an interplay with what do revenues look like for the state of Iowa, and are those proposed dips in revenue because of following the feds something that the state can sustain, or are they going to be taking a look at if they can continue this rolling conformity or if they are going to tweak it? So I think we need to be gathered to make sure we're ready to respond to that. At this point, I'd like to hear if anybody does have particular issues of interest for any of these committees that Brad and I need to be taking back to the committees when they meet starting next week. So I'll pause for a moment to see. Okay, well, that's fine. We will just wait then to hear our inputs when we have the committees convening starting next week. And if you have anything that you think of as you break away from this, Brad's going to go over some contact information in the rest of the presentation. So thank you. And if you have anything, speak up yet while we're still on today, or there'll be this other method Brad will provide.
Yeah, just a few other things we want to note before we let you go today. JD just talked about our Public Policy Committee meetings. You can register for any of those at our events page at iowaabi.org/events. So be sure to check those out. We'd love to see you in August. We have our Executive Open Golf outing, which is going to be held at Glen Oaks Country Club at the end of August. That's always a great time at an immaculate golf course, so check that out. This year, we are doing an Elevate Iowa manufacturing tour where we are going to be doing a Winnebago tour across many manufacturing facilities across the state of Iowa. We're going to be visiting those employers and bringing in students and job seekers and really exposing the opportunity that exists within several communities and highlighting the footprint that manufacturing makes here in Iowa. So we're very excited about this. And that is going to conclude with the Iowa Manufacturing Conference on October 14th in Altoona. We always have a couple hundred folks come out for that. This is all things manufacturing. We're going to have workshops. We're going to have keynote speakers, and it's going to be a good time. So be sure to register for that one. Then our legislative briefing and reception. This is a premier public policy event at the beginning of each year that we have where JD and I do a briefing for members, talk about what's going to happen during the coming legislative session. And then following that, we have a reception where you are able to connect with your local policymaker and establish that relationship, continue to foster and develop that. And we want you to come out to that event because we have a lot of Democrats and a lot of Republicans, folks from both parties who come out for it. So be sure to join us. And then Business Day in Des Moines, that's going to be in March, and that is where we bring policymakers to you, and you get to hear from them in real time as we're at a key point during the legislative session. We bring in Governor Reynolds, we bring in the majority and minority leaders of both parties and both chambers, and we have another keynote speaker that will be addressing the attendees as well. So that's another nice event that will get you engaged in our policy process. And then finally, local legislators, they want to hear from you. They want to understand the impact that your business makes in their district. They want to have coffee, lunch. They want to tour your business. You should try to attend a forum during the legislative session. Many policymakers have those on Fridays and Saturdays during the first 4 or 5 months of the year, so be sure to check out one of those as well. And then finally, you can stay connected with us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on X or Twitter. Our email addresses are right there. So if you have any questions that come up after the presentation is done today, feel free to email us. We're more than happy to try to answer those. And with that, we'll ask if there's any other comments or suggestions for us before we conclude today. Feel free to unmute. If not, okay. Well, we appreciate you being with us today. Thank you very much for your time and investment in ABI, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.